So, welcome to our next episode of the Global Dream Circles podcast. One of the reasons that we started this podcast is because about a year ago, when we started our Global Dream Circles online, we met some really interesting people who have been doing this dream work, and we were coming together once a month to do dream practices. But we really wanted an opportunity to hear about some of the practices that our members have and really to learn from each other, because we're all really just here to wake up in this dream. So today we get to talk with Rumu, and I'm going to read this really incredible bio, and then we're going to dig into some of the juicy tidbits of it. Rumu was born in the year of the Fire Ox and resides in Kyoto, studying the ancient and recent human past through a careful documentation of the ephemeral remains found in the dream world. Taking inspiration from historical physicians and astrologers, Rumu's current practice resides in Tibetan medicine, Sao Ringpa, no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Japanese Sukuyodo, astrology, using traditional methodology for self-study on interdependence to create language and musical scores out of dream matter. With lucid dreaming, as a medium, Rumu explores the otherwise hidden aspects of internal, external, elemental influences and their celestial connection as a way to inspire pleasant dreams. So I think we all know what it's like to have unpleasant dreams. So welcome, Rumu.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the Dream Circles and explore these new, interesting meditation techniques and being part of a community where we're all kind of looking at dreams in the same way. So thank you.
Yeah, I've been really excited to talk to you ever since meeting you last year, because I could just sense that you're someone who has some experience with dream practice. So, how about if we just open it up with you? Just maybe you just talk about what is it that got you interested in the dream practices that you currently have, and then maybe talk about what were some of the earlier dream practices for you, and kind of how have you evolved those dream practices? Where are they today? And then, how does that expand into the work that you're doing in the world?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So I think I'll start by sharing one of my earliest dreams. Um, I think that had sort of a powerful impact on me. It was sometime in elementary school, so I would have been maybe like 9 years old, 10 years old, or a little bit younger. But basically, I was in my childhood house, um, and there were two gates. It was right outside of my bedroom, and there were these two gates. And one of the gates said heaven right above it, and the other gate said hell. So in front of the heaven gate, there were angels. In the hell gate, there were like little monster caricature devils, whatever a child would come up with. So this like great voice asked me, like, which gate uh, do you choose? So, of course, I was raised in somewhat of a Catholic family, so I thought, okay, gotta go to heaven, and I went to the heaven gate, and when I got there, I asked like the angels, okay, heaven, let's go. Uh, they actually transformed into demons, and they were like, "Oh, we tricked you. This is the Hell Gate." And then all of these monsters came out of that gate. Um, so that was kind of the first dream that really felt very very memorable, very like real, and I wasn't lucid, but it was the earliest dream that stuck with me. So the way I see dreams now is that they kind of, not only reflect your waking and what's happening in the world, of your experiences like day to day, but I think there's also some sort of connection with some kind of like collective consciousness or like a previous consciousness of your own maybe past or future lives, or I don't know how it works, but I think that dream kind of was tapped into something weird, um, and after that I didn't really get into dreaming again until high school when one of my friends introduced me to lucid dreaming, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I was so drawn to it. Um, so since then, it's been about 10 years now. I've been working up on my lucid dreaming practice, and more recently, I've gotten into probably about 5 years ago. I've gotten into like Tibetan dream practices. Um, at my old university, I went to art school, and there was a group lecture with Michael Katz, who his book kind of introduced me to all of the Tibetan sphere of dreamers. So like Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, Namkhai Norbu, and so on. And from there, I met somewhat of my current mentor, who was on the podcast before, Stephen Altair, and he introduced me to astrology and more lucid dreaming techniques and uh, like compassionate Kuan Yin meditations, and all of that has kind of come together to form my current art practice, which is kind of the accumulation of all of my like dream researches, current dream like theories, and current dreams. Just whatever I've been recording these past few weeks, it's always gonna end up in an art piece somehow.
Wow. So, okay. So I think I want to go back to that early memorable dream and kind of
Mm,
see if we can pick up the dream weave from there and carry it forward to your
mm.
practices now. Would you be open to that?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So when I reflect on what I know about child development, that age of about 9 years, the consciousness of a child is expanding from this body being, this physical sense of reality, is expanding beyond that into this sense of what are the ideals that are held by my family, by the adults around me, and then what are my ideals? And perhaps a huge threshold of consciousness that is crossed around that age of developmental 9 years is going from death as an idea and a concept, because up until then, children don't really understand death and the finality of it. Like, okay, when's grandma coming back? When's the family
Mm,
dog coming back? At age 9, it becomes very real. Not only is death real, but I will die one day. It becomes this
mm,
pervasive knowing at that stage of development. And so, how interesting that your psyche was perhaps grappling with this awareness, whether it was conscious or not, um, through this, end of life choice, for heaven or hell. Um,
mm.
so, yeah, I don't know how that lands for you hearing that information. Um,
Well, I remember like being on the playground as a kid and just kind of like walking by myself and thinking like, oh, um, thinking about death the way a child would think about death, like, oh, like what's going on? Like, what is this? And I don't really know how that had an effect on me, but now it makes a lot of sense. Now, um, connected with like the dream practices, there's a lot about impermanence and the practices I'm doing where you're looking at everything as a dream, like the dream yoga practices.
Yeah. And I love how it did not matter
The
that
dream
it's,
is one of the most impermanent things you can kind of think of. Sorry, you cut out there for a moment.
yeah. Oh, I want to pick that back up too, but I'm just reflecting on how interesting it was that that early dream that you have of really was about impermanence, and you as a 9-year-old self just grappling with what that all meant. So, and you mentioned that where your practices are now are in the lucid dreaming, and again for the adolescent age. Um, that's really coming into this place of, this expanded field of knowing, of um, from feeling into even deeper into what are the ideals that I hold for myself now. And I don't know what it is about the adolescent brain, but the same thing happened for my oldest son. He became very interested in lucid dreaming when he was
Mm,
about that age, some type of a quickening that happened developmentally, probably again, more deeply exploring the idea of impermanence, that this life is impermanent. So, and just now you mentioned, the nature of a dream is that it is impermanent. So maybe just talk a little bit about that, what that means to you now.
mm. Well, I played a lot of video games. I played a lot of video games, and when you're playing like Zoo Tycoon, I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's like an old computer game where you build a zoo. And I tried to play it again recently, like a similar game, but it's basically doing what you would be doing in your waking life, like trying to build up some sort of project, uh, and just like accumulating like animals and zookeepers and so on. But when you shut the computer, it's like it's gone. And then after a few years, when you don't touch the game ever again, then it's totally gone. So I think like that has helped me understand, what's being accumulated in this life. Eventually I'm going to stop playing the game. So that for for whatever reason has really had an impact on me. The video games and seeing life like a dream to me is similar to seeing life like a video game. And as someone who was really shy growing up, um, thinking like, okay, this is a dream, this is impermanent, like this is a game. Not in the sense where push your values away and you're like, oh, it's a game, I can do anything. But more in the sense like, okay, this will pass, like suffering will pass. I don't need to feel embarrassed. I don't need to feel shy because like this is all just a dream.
That is the most probably profound life teaching I think I've ever heard anyone mention from playing video games. Uh, I think that's going to stay
I'm a
with
big
me.
supporter. I actually was last night in my dream playing some kind of video game, so I think that's why it came up.
Can you talk a little bit about your lucid dream practices? Because I hear from people regularly how much they would love to either have a lucid dream or, gosh, even haven't remembered a dream in years, on a real drought where it comes to remembering their dream content. So, can you maybe just talk a little bit about how you developed the practices? Was it kind of something that came naturally to you, or did you have to work at it? Was there a discipline involved in developing the skills?
Hmm. Yeah, so this is definitely something that'll be from person to person. For me, it uh, was somewhat disciplined. It didn't happen naturally. Um, I was always a bit envious of people who were naturally really powerful dreamers, or they'd recall so many uh, events. Um, but for me, it was the process of writing down my dream as detailed as possible every single night, kind of since I started. Um, but also, like Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche mentions this, you don't want to take your practice too seriously. Um, the way I interpreted that was you might kind of become too stiff in your practice, and that might cause like some fears. You might not remember things right. Um, might make you anxious, and with the dreaming practice, I think being relaxed, because it is like, you're asleep and you have to be relaxed to fall asleep or just completely exhausted, but then usually you don't really dream. Um, but I think writing down my dreams has had the most powerful impact for uh, actually allowing me to remember them and then remember them more vividly. Um, right now, the practice is a bit of a mess. I just moved to Japan, so things are. I'm still settling into the new dream world here. Recently in my dreams, I've been paying with Japanese yen instead of like US dollars, so I think that's a good sign. But yeah, the how conscious you are during the day and how much you like remain in your presence will reflect in your dream how conscious you can be in your dream. And all of this eventually leads to when you die, so that, if you're unconscious in all of your dreams, then when the moment of death comes, it might be a little bit tricky to remain conscious and be able to continue with those, like any Tibetan practices or whatever you're practicing.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about as well because I did not come from a an Eastern dream practice. Very much like you, I grew up in the church, and so, but yet became a student of my dreams. Really not until my 30s, and like you, it was a discipline for me. I had to every single morning write down the content of my dreams. And at that stage, I was
Mm,
very much into interpreting meaning and messages, having a lot of prophetic dreams, really just trying to figure out what is going on in my psyche, what is awakening in me. Um, and it wasn't
mm,
until later that I came into this understanding of Eastern dream practices. And at that stage, I'd already done so much digging into ancestry and archaeology, trying to understand what some of the very, very early recorded, um, European dream practices were as I was digging into my own ancestry. So then came the layer of these Eastern practices of really just practicing dying, which it's almost like that first dream that you remembered was inviting you to this tutelage. That, I have to
mm.
wonder, like, have you just drawn in all these teachers that have come in to support your understanding of the dream? So, how about would you talk a little bit about the Tibetan medicine practices and just specifically what you have learned through your studies related to dream work?
Definitely, definitely. So anyway, that's so interesting. I agree that um, I think like I guess this isn't exactly what you said, but um, that what what you just said kind of sparked this in me. Kind of when you have some kind of prophetic dream, or like the deeper you go, then that kind of builds on top of the practice and makes it a lot more like it strengthens the practice, I think. But back to Tibetan medicine. Yeah, your pronunciation was good. I don't speak Tibetan, so it's Sowa Rigpa, and it's basically a like kind of compilation of a lot of different medical systems. So there's aspects of Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, Persian and Greek medicine, Mongolian medicine. It was something I had never heard of until just a few years ago when I was looking at Thangka paintings. And just on Google, I clicked on one of the Thangka paintings, and it was all of these images of like little figures. And I love little figures. So that really got me interested. And they were kind of reflecting like the different states of disease or illness people have. And through that, I found that the entire Tibetan medical system is documented with paintings. So that's how I got interested in it. But through kind of this practice, the Tibetan medical like studies, I found that there's a lot of psychology behind it, which matches up with modern psychology or Jungian psychology, um, because it's based in Buddhist theory and like Buddhist psychology. I don't know if you'd call it a Buddhist medical system. I generally do. I don't know if that's correct. Um, but there's kind of the three mental poisons, and this is parallel with the other Tibetan spiritual practices, like the dream yoga practice. There's the three mental poisons, and those are what cause illness. So anger, desire, and ignorance. And from those, you can just kind of find so many, so many different things, like where the illness comes from, all of the factors, and that's the root or the starting point. So I found that with dreams, looking specifically at like attachment, aversion, and ignorance, you can really find I don't know what the meaning of the dream metaphors and where your poor health lies, which might otherwise be hidden. Um, like I said, I think the dreams reflect your waking life, and in dreams you're a lot more aware of your own body, and it's kind of a gateway to the deep psyche. So you're more sensitive to these factors. So my current art practice is using the psychology behind Sowa Rigpa as kind of its basis. But one thing I did learn was that because I know sometimes past the age of like I don't know 60 or something, dream recall can get more difficult. So one solution to that, which we learned in class, was not about dream recall, but about memory. And I think those two are related. Is about learning a language, like a language really different from your own. So that's kind of a big homework if you want to just remember your dreams. But if you're if you're an elder looking for a stronger memory and a way to avoid illnesses like Alzheimer's, etc., learning a new language can be maybe helpful. I don't know if I answered your question. I kind of got on a ramble.
It was a great ramble. I was very struck by this idea of learning a new language because 60 is not too far off from me. And
Mm,
yeah, I'm reflecting on a conversation I had with a friend who's in her kind of later 70s who was commenting about how difficult it's been to remember her dream content. So now I'm thinking maybe that, I was thinking of learning my ancestral language of Czech Bohemian. So now you've got
Mm,
me inspired to maybe pick that back up again, maybe pull it off the back burner and
yeah.
see if I can get cooking with that. So, wow. Um, yeah, so the Tibetan practices that you have mentioned and you talked about, I definitely want to talk about how it's informed your art, and I would love to hear you talk about your art expression. Um, and then, yeah, let's just start with that.
Okay. But yeah, I definitely recommend learning the languages. That's a lot of fun. So, um, let's see. The most, I guess I'll start with the most recent art piece I made. Um, so I've been recording my dreams like usual, but using a few different Tibetan, I don't know, methods maybe. Um, one is the 80 kuntuk, and it's sort of like 80 different ways of interpreting the world, 80 different like um, emotional factors, states of consciousness. I don't know if I'm doing it justice. And then the other is the 51 states of consciousness. So these are two lists which simplify the way we experience the world. Um, the 80 Kuntok has a list of mental factors which arise out of anger, ignorance, and desire. So using those, I can kind of unearth where my deepest kind of issues lie. Because according to Tibetan medicine, like unhappiness is also not being in good health. So it's a very well-rounded definition of what good health is. It includes mental health and as well as like bodily health and spiritual health. So that's kind of why I love including it in my art. I think it's something which would be of good benefit to people to be spread out. So the other list I was talking about, the 51 states of consciousness, show different perceptions like eye consciousness, mind consciousness. Um, that's more. I'm also including that. That's also uh, more of like a what's the word? Like a science project. It's more of like a. I'm recording it to see if I can find any parallels, but I haven't exactly figured out what I'm doing with it yet. So in each dream, I'm recording these factors, as well as a few other ones. Um, and after, I don't know, an entire lunar cycle or even longer, as I mentioned, Altair has graciously taught me astrology. Um, so I'm definitely using planetary influences as well and seeing how those affect everything. But by kind of following these cycles, based in astrology, these planetary cycles, I'm seeing how these affect my emotions and in the dream. So therefore, how it affects my emotions in like waking life or my feelings and kind of trying to discover where the health problems lie. Um, like I said, it might just be unhappiness or sorrow through documenting these. And then I'm attaching these to like invented musical scores. So by the end of like a month, I'll have 30 different dreams with all of these different factors, and then I can assign them in different ways. And at this part, I can get pretty creative about it. I can assign them in different ways to musical notes, and in the end, I'll be able to, or I'll have different melodies which reflect that month of dreams.
That is so remarkably just creative. Did you have a dream that inspired this, or I just how did this idea or this concept give rise in you?
So I think this has been like a slow accumulation just from the years of like working with dreams and trying to relate it to art. Um, I did my undergraduate thesis on like the psychology behind dreams, uh, kind of comparing the Eastern and the Western psychologies, and it's just kind of been stacking and stacking on top of each other, and somehow it ended up in like the musical realm.
Wow. And have you made visual art as well?
Yes, yeah.
Is this
So the music is actually quite new. Um, I've only done one piece with that so far, um, but the next 2 years I'm planning a whole series with different songs. So I'm usually a painter. I have been making black and white oil paintings for a few years. I also love watercolors, and I'm working on a deck of fortune cards right now based on Japanese astrology, the Tsukuyodo astrological practices, kind of using imagery from my dreams since I've been in Kyoto. And later today, I'm actually going to the Kafune Shrine to collect some of the sacred water, and I'll be using that so I can start my watercolor paintings of the cards. And
wow.
I think it's a new moon over here. I'll have
Yeah,
to double check,
that's right.
but yeah, so I I'll have to go today to get that water. I think that'll be powerful.
For sure. Now, this piece that we're looking at on the screen right now, is this your creation?
It is, it is. This is just a little like uh I guess negative space collage of a photo I took at an aquarium, and then I layered it with a drawing and erased the drawing and wrote a little bit next to it. And yeah, this one I didn't set this for this podcast specifically, but this is actually looks like it's also related to dreams and sleep.
It certainly does, which brings the question, where you are now in your dream practice, how has it shaped your perception of reality? Whatever that word means.
Mm,
Um, yeah, what comes up for
mm.
you with that concept of what even is reality? What even is the dream?
Okay, the big questions coming in. All right, so I think mm, like I mentioned with everything is like a video game. Everything is a dream. Uh, I've been trying to feel the like that dream space all the time. That's what we were taught by Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, um, to like feel it, not just say I'm in a dream, but to really feel it. Um, and I've noticed when I can, it's hard to like unlock. I don't know, but when I can really feel like, oh, I'm in a dream, and I feel like I'm in a dream, but I'm in, the waking dream, the waking life. There's like an insane amount of peace and just like joy that comes up. And I don't, I, it's, for me, it's very difficult. I have to sit down and really focus. Um, but when I can like get there, it's really great. Um, and the more I can do that during the day, then the more lucid dreams I have. Uh, and the more kind of peaceful my life ends up being. So back to the question of like, what is reality? Oh, it's such a big question. uh, I like the idea that we're like little drops of water, and uh, like the reality is sort of the ocean, but nothing physical is part of that ocean. It's kind of like a projection of the water, maybe like the mist. Um, so I'm really into like samsara and the idea that, I'm a believer of that what's happening now, uh, that everything that's impermanent, it's not real. So the true reality is that sense of consciousness that you uh, attain when you're truly present. So maybe that's a starting point, but it's definitely not something I understand.
That honestly, that was just really profound. And I could not have articulated that. It's such a horribly unfair question to ask anybody to define what reality is, and especially anybody with dream practices. Because, if anything, this idea of what reality truly is has just gotten blurrier and blurrier and blurrier. And
Yeah.
I'm maybe 20 years into dream practice at this stage, and I feel like I've but scratched the surface, and very much like you've alluded to, I feel like when I go into sleep or when I go into shamanic journey, that to me feels so much more real than
Mm,
the sort of societal constructs that we might call the real world. And like you said, there's this deep sense of peace and of joy. I noted that that has been my work. Not so much, what kind of dreams can I have when I sleep, but can I be awake in this dream?
mm,
And so I've noticed that when synchronicities happen, or some symbolism
mm,
that maybe came through in my sleep. I see it with my natural eyes, driving down the road or walking, or a conversation with the friend or colleague is happening, and it brings up dream content from the night before or perhaps nights before. It's in those moments that, like you said, now I'm really going to be looking for what is the feeling? Where's the joy? Where is the peace? And I think you hit the nail on the head, really. It is a deep sense of peace. Like, um, this feeling of seamlessness. Um,
mm,
and in shamanic journey work and shamanic cosmology, there's this idea of the other world, and so many contemporary, or at least in our lifetime, people who've done shamanism, dream work, and etc., have struggled to define what that is. Like, where do we go in the dream? Where do we go in the journey? Have we gone anywhere? What consciousness or dimensions have we actually tapped into that are so much more real and, authentic? And now I feel like I'm kind of meandering, but just coming back to this concept of what even is reality. Um,
mm,
yeah. And it's such a big question that I think it just has to live in us, for perhaps this whole lifetime. What even is reality?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. We'll hopefully slowly get a deeper understanding of it. But it's always so profound seeing those synchronicities come up and thinking like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. Mm,
Yeah, that's what it feels for me too when that happens. There's just a knowing in the bones.
yeah. It's like a weightlessness, but also like very very much the opposite of weightlessness. Uh, like the heaviness of the soul, but the weightlessness of the body. I don't know.
The weightlessness of the body. I love that. Um, well, you've left us with really just some deep ideas to continue to ponder and dive into of, um, feeling. I mean, that's something that I'm taking away from this discussion, is to really notice, what am I feeling in my feeling body in those times when I'm dreaming awake,
Mm,
um, as well
mm,
as this idea that of the music of our dreams, thinking about
mm.
that. Do you have any recordings available yet that are published?
I do. I have one on my website, and there will be a lot more to come. For now, there's only a single recording, but I'd be more than happy to share that.
Would love to hear that. I think that I just already can feel the inspiration in it. So we'll be sure to link your website and a link to that recording. And then would love for you to share. You've got some really cool projects that you're working on from um, that inspirational deck that you're creating, as well as, oh my gosh, just this. I love the intentionality and the mysticism behind even this idea that you're collecting water from this sacred place for your watercolor art. Just the depth of meaning, behind all of that, and intentionality and consciousness that you're bringing to your artistic expression. This has just been
Oh,
really rich and wonderful. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave our listeners with? And we're definitely going to share your work and your links when we post this.
yeah, yeah. First, just thank you so much for all the nice words and all the nice things you said. Um, I had a great time talking on the podcast, and I guess I do want to thank you as well as Altair, everyone who's been in the Dream Group, the Dream Circles, and our astrology courses. So if you're listening, you know who you are, as well as Dr. Nita, who's teaching the Soa Rigpa course and all of the guest lectures we've been having, and Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche and the other dream gurus, as well as the Kriya Yoga lineage, which is sort of uh, like got me into, taught me what it means to be, to live with compassion and be a compassionate person. So, yeah, thank you to everybody and everybody who's listening. And yeah, if we don't cut the podcast, I'll just keep thanking people. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And just thanks for all of the beauty and the wisdom that you're bringing forth from the dream world into this dreamscape of what we call this intellectual societal version of reality that we're all living in. So thank you so much, Rumu. And when you are complete with some of those other projects, I'd love to have you come back and share.
Oh, I'd love to, definitely.
Well,
Well,
thank you
yeah,
so
it was my
much.
pleasure. Thank you so much.